Wham. Liftoff.
Hello, Flyover family. You better buckle up, because this is the Flyover Conservative Show.
Get ready to laugh and grab some wisdom bombs from all the way across the pond with Katie Hopkins.
We got an economic update tonight that covers everything from OPEC to the fact that some banks are 92% uninsured.
Ooh.
Is yours one of them?
All of this and more on the Flyover Conservative Show. Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacey Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
I, without a doubt, will say today is our most fun guest.
Oh, I am so excited. I am looking forward to this.
Ever. We had just a brilliant bolt of British sunshine fall on us when we were freezing our little booties off in Nashville, Tennessee. Did a live interview with somebody I'd only seen at a distance. I've just seen cuts and clips. And sometimes, you meet a famous person and they're just not up to expectations. It's like ordering food at Applebee's or something. You're like, that does not look like the picture. This isn't what was advertised. This person definitely is beyond what's advertised.
Far beyond.
She's been a writer for The Sun, for the Mail Online. She was on a version of the 2007 The Apprentice. She's loved by many, but she's also the only one I've ever met that was kicked out of an entire continent, not a country.
Nope.
I know a lot of friends have been kicked out of a bar even. But I've never met somebody that was kicked out of a continent and had a president of a nation actually brag and celebrate it. So with no further ado, the one, the only Miss Katie Hopkins.
You guys are the cutest. Thank you so much. That's very generous and very kind.
Well, look at that sweet little mug. You're there in your lip-covered shirt. And like, who would kick you out of a continent?
Who kicks you out of a continent?
Who would kick you out of a continent?
I know. It's can I just clarify that picture there? I wasn't actually trying to flash you, and I wasn't trying to highlight any area of my female body. I was showing my sneakers off. Can I just make that very clear?
It's actually much more PG than the picture implies, for sure. I was there. There was nothing nefarious going on.
No. Oh my gosh, that was such a blast. And it was very cold.
We laughed so hard,
You couldn't tell them by your outfit. Were you freezing?
So freezing. So I just was like, I got ready in the hotel room. I got my little Uber to the event, which was a tent, isn't it, in Nashville? We were in this huge tent with zero parking. And I got out the car and I was like, come on, we have to bring the sunshine.
Yes.
And then about 5 minutes later, when I saw everybody else wrapped up like they were in Alaska, I was like, okay, bringing the sunshine was a bad idea. And then I didn't dare put my coat on because I knew if I put my coat on, it was never coming off.
Yep.
So I just took it like a Brit and I just pretended like I was warm.
Damn cold.
Gosh. I mean, I have long underwear underneath of that outfit. And
That's so hot.
This is the
that
traffic.
Is so hot.
This is the traffic coming into that place. I mean, it was crazy.
Now we're getting ready to have another big shindig in Miami. So
that's where we were right there.
So in that that traffic line there, after the gig was over and everybody was going home in that traffic, me and a caravan of other sort of homeless-looking people walked down the side because we'd left our vehicles in fields miles away. We walked like a little caravan of homeless people walking towards the southern border along that traffic
and mumbling,
line. It was a wonder we survived.
No kidding, shivering.
Nope.
Don't forget.
Crazy time, what you got to do to save your country. Now we hold these events almost every month. The last 2 years, about 18 or 19 months in a row. Now doing once a quarter these ReAwaken America events, but there was buildings in Nashville that could have housed 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Civic auditoriums, things like this. But you can't have it anywhere that's connected to anything that the state can control. They kick you out. So we've had them in tents and fields and everything else, and people get together, and it's amazing the overreach, because even if you rent a building, you pay for it, even if it's at a Marriott, something like that. There's a union, a fire department's going to do something. It is crazy the lengths you got to have to go to speak truth, and how that's being suppressed. You got a background, everything from the military to so on and so forth, but probably the greatest fight of your life has been the ability to use your mouth and speak clearly and to say truth and not have it be challenged by the world.
Yeah, and I think, a few things on that is when you see our side. So you walk into something like Nashville and this huge tent in the middle of nowhere where it's -2 and you guys are literally like blasting hot air into the tent in the hope that, and then people are kind of hovering around the hot air vent to just kind of defrost and then swapping places with someone else. What I love about that is the tenacity of our side. That is the determination of our side. And I find it, and I spoke to others who were there about this, it's so uplifting to me that even before we really hit the pressure point that we know is coming down the track, we feel the darkness coming. Even as we walk towards it, we are prepared to go to any lengths to gather, to reassure each other and to lift each other up. And I find that thrilling. So in a way, if we were in some sort of Hilton or some Marriott or some Garden Inn or some other festering place, it actually wouldn't be sort of as glorious because you'd have things like toilets and heating. And we don't need that on our side.
It makes you soft.
Because we are bigger than that and we are tougher than that. And you guys have your Second Amendment. And if I had to choose between heating and a weapon, I'm choosing a weapon every time. So there's that. And then for me, yes, here in the UK, facts are now hate speech, which means truth is an arrestable offence. And that really explains why my refusal to stop speaking truth is why I've been banned from everywhere, deported from Australia, banned from South Africa. And I'm also actually banned from a little place you may have heard of called Wales.
Oh, okay. Talk about that. How did that actually happen? Why are you banned from these countries or this continent?
Yeah, different reasons, actually, because I like to, vary it up a bit. Don't like to, have the same story. So every time different. South Africa.
I mean, a country. That's just so crazy. Some people they can no longer go to their ex-in-laws Thanksgiving or something like that because of a divorce, or there's like a thing, but not nations. Like some people are like, my ex's family doesn't like me, or there's that kind of thing, but not countries.
Yeah,
I know. And I hear people, on stages going, yeah, I've been banned. And they go like, yeah, I've been banned from Twitter. And I'm like, me. So, different reasons in different times, which I'm proud of that. So South Africa, because I committed to go and show the torture, murder of white farmers by black gangs that goes on right now. White farmers are hunted in South Africa, and because they're the wrong colour, they're white, no one talks of it.
Nope.
So I went and slept on white farms for 3 months and documented the killing of white farmers in South Africa. The ANC got wind of my visit and my documentary and were trying to remove me. And then as I went to leave the country, because I was working ahead of allowing people to know where I was for obvious security reasons, they took my passport, they detained me, and things weren't looking too clever there for a minute. But it does mean that now I'm banned from South Africa. And then Australia was just recently deported just ahead of Novak Djokovic, because I was taken over there to do a terrible TV show, nonsense celebrity TV show, during the time when Australians were absolutely locked down. They could not leave, they could not return, they could not visit their children, they could not come back to see dying relatives. And yet they brought me in to the country to do a nonsense TV program. And I thought to myself, this is an opportunity to speak out. And so when I was put in my prison quarantine for 15 days on my own, I went online and I let go. I spoke about the tyranny. I urged people to take to the streets, and I threatened to grab a member of the security team on the 24th floor and violate them. And that's what got me deported from Australia.
Wow. Well, okay, so let me ask you a question. There are, a lot of people, maybe in one. So David and I, I was the rule follower growing up. I was like, okay, you're supposed to do this, supposed to do that. You sit here, don't say anything, those kind of things. And David's like, well, why do we have to sit there? Why can't we say anything? He'd always question it. So when everything came out about COVID, it was really hard for me. I was like, these masks are really bad, but they're asking us to wear a mask, so maybe I should. So this was a thing that I had to really work through. David was just naturally, he's like, no, we're not wearing a mask. That is stupid. We might as well just put our finger on our nose and say, okay, is this for you? Because it's not doing any good. So my question to you is, like, did you grow up? Were you kind of more like David, where you were like, rules? What's that rule for? Why am I doing that? Or were you like, what were you like growing up?
Some people phrase that as, how did you end up like this? Which I think is a less polite way of saying the same thing. Yeah. But I was really really standardized. So I went through a private all girls school, and we were taught by nuns. And wow. I don't know who it was that was like, oh yeah, those are nuns. They're wearing a habit, therefore they can teach geography. Like, that is not a logic trail that anyone should follow. And I don't recommend it for anyone. But it was very, very strict. We had to wear kilts, even though we're not Scottish. And the nuns made us sew up the kilt in case the kilt flashed open. Oh. And the local boys at the comprehensive saw a thigh. So wow. Kind of repressive upbringing. My father, very much a conservative father. You did not mess with my father. Dinner was on the table at 5:00. We did our homework. We did what we were told. And then, round and about, I went to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. And in your first term at the academy, it is brutal. You don't sleep on your bed. Other people who've served will know, but you sleep next to it because you don't want to go through the hassle of trying to make it again and iron it and make it perfect for inspection. You have to put your underwear, you have to iron them into 4-inch squares, which luckily I have quite a small tush, so it wasn't too hard. Some of the bigger Bettys there, I was like, ooh. Try getting a 4-inch square out of that. But so rules and discipline were all me. And then I just life was kind of easy. Stuff was easy. It's always been easy. Passing stuff that's hard has been easy. And so it kind of just triggered something in me where I was like, dang, I'm not going to do what I'm told anymore. I'm going to take what I know and I'm going to run with it. And so even before COVID, to your point, like I would have all my kids in the car and we'd be driving and the road would say, road closed. And I would keep driving and my kids would be like, Mom. And I'd be like, yeah, but we don't know it's closed. I mean, they're saying it's closed.
You said that before.
Well, look at like the heart of something. Like, well, clearly here's their intent with this sign.
Yeah.
I mean, like if it's the middle of summer and there's a sign that says beware of ice because there's a bridge, it's like, it's July. I don't have to really beware of ice at this moment. I know why they put the sign there. Clearly that doesn't apply right now because it's summer. It's common sense, So like I'll kind of look at what's the heart of this and not just like,
exactly.
But it said beware of ice, so I'm going to do it today. No, clearly it's July.
Exactly. And also, road closed. Okay, so some moron has come here and put a road closed sign because tomorrow they're going to start doing work. Well, guess what? Today, I'm still coming through. And even if you are doing work and I can still squeeze my car through or I can move you a bit so I can get through, I'm coming through. And just because you're a guy and you're dressed in some sort of overalls, you don't really get to tell me that the road's closed. It's that kind of attitude. It's not rude. It's not aggressive. It's just, no, I'm coming through. Yeah.
Yep. That is really cool.
And so, there's a little bit of an integrity compromise, though, when you take something like a mask and you realize that
it doesn't
clearly
work.
This is not grounded in any kind of reality. I don't care how you change the word of science and make it scientism and all this kind of stuff. Like, we're all playing along. We're all faking. And so for me, it's like a chip away at my own integrity, my own soul to like even participate in this silliness, Yeah. It's like on this spectrum that would make everybody be quiet if they started hauling away Jews. It's like, well, I mean, it's I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm saying it's this continuation of like, I know this is wrong. I know this is not, but I don't want to rock the boat on people on either side of me. So I'm just going to sit here and be quiet and just kind of stay in my lane. I don't think that concept anywhere on that spectrum serves society as a whole when the masses are willing to be quiet to what they know is truth.
Yeah. And then I think there was so much fun. There was also so much glorious stuff to be had around that mask time. So, if you were kind of, I guess it's a lucky position. So you get to my position where, I don't own anything anymore. I'm banned from a lot of places. I don't have an employer anymore. I don't have anyone I have to report to. So it's easier for me now to just do my thing. So like it would be great. You had to wear a mask to go on a plane, didn't you? So you put the mask on to get on the plane, and then the minute you got on the plane, you take it down so that you walk down the aisle with your chin up, no mask on, and then you could see the eyes of the people who were with you. It was like a uniform and a badge.
Yeah, like a little wink.
Yeah, and then walking through airports without a mask and people coming up going, come on. And because they were one of you. And then there was just the fun of it. There was like, ma'am, have you got a mask? And then you'd be like, yes, I have. Could you put it on? Yes, I could. Well, put it on. And there was just a lot of fun about being the calm, funny person that was just going to play along for a bit. Yeah.
That is okay. So
just resist a little bit. Just kind of push back a little bit as you go.
Okay, so let me add another question for you. I definitely, we've kind of talked about in our marriage. I am a person of like justice. Like if here's an example. I have a brother-in-law that ran a marathon at Disney several years ago. This was a couple decades ago. But when he ran the marathon, there was a place in the marathon where people could go down. They kind of came to like this end thing, and then they would run back the exact same way they just came. And then they would kind of finish the race. And I think that was probably around the 20-mile mark, something like that, maybe the 17-mile mark, something like that. Well, what was happening was instead of people going all the way down, they were actually cutting across once they realized that it was going to come back. They were cutting across and missing whatever that was, mile, 2 mile, whatever it was.
It's like a mile down, mile back, so it's 2 mile cut off.
So they were cutting it off, and then they went to go finish the race. Well, when they finished the race, they have these little chips in their shoes, and there was a chip here at the end that they didn't know that didn't count them. And so when they went to go finish the race, it showed they didn't complete the race, and so they didn't get their medal.
It's called almost a marathon.
Yeah. And so
they didn't have a trophy for
me
that.
being a justice person, I'm like, they deserve that. They cheated.
It brought her joy to know that there was a mechanism that held them accountable.
I'm like, justice was served because they cheated. The other people went all the way down. They didn't go all the way down. And so
cheater, punk and eater. You don't get a reward, and your kids don't respect you either.
Yeah. So when you were talking about what was happening in South Africa, it sounds like you're very much a justice person as well. You're like, no, this is wrong, and I'm going to bring awareness to others so other people know as well.
Oh, 100% justice every time. And the weird thing for me, like with the marathon thing, is if you're going to cheat like that, I would love to, if someone's outraged because they didn't get their medal because they cheated, I would love to say to them, but who did you cheat?
Right.
Who did you cheat? Because the only person, if you chose to miss a mile, I'm like, go you. Yep. Miss the mile out. Dang it. You're doing 26. You want to do 24 instead? I'm all about it. Go get a cake. But it's only you that you cheated.
Right.
So why are you trying to trick someone else? And that's kind of analogous to life, I think, on our side. And by our side, I simply mean the side that wants everyone to live their best life and be as free as they can be, which is that ultimately, even when the whole world, as it sometimes seems, sometimes it has seemed to me here, even when the whole world hates you, or when you've been humiliated on a national stage, or everybody seems to be laughing at you, or they come and they take your house and people are celebrating that you have no home anymore. There is still at the end of the line, some place you can go to in yourself that says, I know I'm not a bad person. I know the person they're laughing at isn't actually me. I know I'm not what they're saying I am, and this will be true for people who've been called terrible names, or you've been called a COVID conspiracy theorist, or you've been called a vax denier, or whatever the names are you've been called. We know we're not that. And so I often say to ladies, and I really wish I had my Post-it notes here to demonstrate, because I find it very effective. But, people can stick labels on you. If you imagine those, what do you call sticky notes in America? Post-it notes?
Post-it notes.
Yeah.
Post-it notes, good. Everyone's like, yes, same, Katie, same.
Yep.
But, right, I've got this script from earlier. So, like, if someone takes a name and they stick it on you, that's all it is. It's just a label they put on you. It's not who you are. They need to own that they called you. And it's not. And so you always have the integrity of knowing who you really are. And in the darkest moments, sometimes when you wonder if you can go on, that can really, really get you through.
That is
you used a term a moment ago, like our side. And I think that's a really interesting concept, because at one point you would have thought that sides would have been political, like Republican and Democrat. But if you watched our last 10 shows, last 20 shows, 19 times out of 20, if we're talking about a Republican, it's usually in a negative light. And they just disgust me more than a Democrat who says that's what they're about. This uniparty idea. We beat up on the Republicans. We probably, as conservative Christians, we probably beat up on pastors more than most people, because we expect more from them than they've represented in this modern era. And so we talk about sides. I wonder sometimes, like, who's my side? If there's a war, like, who would be in my foxhole? And there's these characters like, sometimes I watch a clip by Bill Maher. I'm like, boom, nailed it. Drop the mic, Bill. That was fantastic. I wouldn't consider us on the same side on a lot of things. Joe Rogan, I wouldn't have considered a historical conservative Christian that we would have checked all the boxes on an eHarmony matchup quiz or something, or a Cosmo quiz, right? We would have been, he's not necessarily pro-life. He's not, wouldn't be a lot of things that I would consider valuable. But I look, if I had a foxhole, Joe Rogan might more likely be next to me in it, protecting the things I value, like right to speak, right to protect myself, go through the amendments, more so than a pastor like an Andy Stanley or somebody who I would have maybe theologically aligned with, for most of my life. So
Yes.
we're in a weird environment where it's like, who is our side? And it's changing when you see like Elon Musk do what he's done. When you see like the Twitter files, Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi, and I forget the third guy. The third guy was like considers himself a major lefty until literally he got the Twitter files, in the last few months. So these are all people that would have voted for Biden, voted for Obama, this kind of thing all the way through. But now I'd say, wow, I would probably more likely have a comfortable dinner with them than I would, others. So do you find this it's a long way to ask this question, but do you find the deck of cards being reshuffled a little bit on what are the sides?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. I love it because, I've always believed in this broad church idea. And I've always loved the idea that my job somehow is to hang out with the congregation and just be kind of like, yeah, come on, sit down. Come on. Oh, yeah, come and sit down. Like, I know I'm on the stage and I can be on the stage and, that's lovely. But actually, I like to hang with the congregation. And the idea always, if I imagine myself, is that I'm walking like with my arms outstretched, because just like in the armies of old here in Europe, so you could have fighting forces in gladiatorial times where you would have fighting forces join that didn't even speak the same language. They came from different countries, different nations, they spoke different languages, but they were on the same side against the common enemy. And that's what's so brilliant, is that as the enemy is more well articulated, which is this globalist, this push for control, this making people smaller, making people just insect-eating nothings. As that enemy defines itself more clearly, we can start to realize, well, we're on this team against the darkness. And that is terrific, because it's not polarizing, it's not left or right, it's not Republican or Democrat, it's not this religion or that. It's people standing against something that they see as a clear enemy. So in a way, the more that Fauci articulates, or the more that Biden articulates, if he can on a good day, is better for us, because the enemy shows itself. And what I always encourage in our site, because people say, well, it's all very well, Katie, that you like fill in the blank, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, but she is supporting the war in Ukraine, or she is pro this. And it's like our site sometimes demands that we all agree with every single thing. And we must agree with this, and you must also agree with abortion stuff, and you must agree with this stuff, and you must agree with this, but you mustn't be a Trump, but you must be a DeSantis, and everyone's list is different, and they want other people to fit exactly with their way. And it's always a polite asking of people to say, well, let's not agree on everything. Let's agree boldly, broadly, that we see a common enemy, and we would rather be together than apart. And that, I think, is what we need. And even people who bought into the COVID thing, people who loved a mask, people who got 14 injections and 85 boosters, that if they now want to join us, come.
Right.
Come. Yeah. I don't have any time for this whole, well, we tried to tell you and you wouldn't listen. I don't have time for that. Bring them. Come. Right. Join this side because it's fun.
And it was such a good window for a lot of people. Maybe they just wearing a mask because it was their season to shine. Maybe they kind of had an ugly mouth and pretty teeth. And I mean, an ugly mouth and pretty eyes.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I've been waiting for this era. I'm going to start dating now.
I'm telling you. You two are laughing there. Look at you with your teeth. Look at you. Look.
Yes.
You blooming Americans with your American teeth, just because your parents loved you and you had
the standard.
oral hygienists. So you were like totally like, no, we don't want masks because we're Christian conservatives and we're American. I'm like, I totally love the mask because these teeth, my parents didn't even love me. Where I grew up, and this isn't even a lie, this isn't even funny for funny, the vet was my dentist. No joke. 1 minute he had his arm shoved up a cow and the next he was trying to sort out these. So,
Well, it's that same kind of thing, though, that has raised the value. We both grew up on farms, and you go to buy a horse, you're gonna look at its teeth. And when we were dating, I knew Stacey had good teeth and a strong back. I knew that like in the 7th grade. I'm like, she has a strong constitution.
She's got great teeth.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this is what your wife is sort of looking. I know we're all laughing along, but I think she might be looking for some other sort of traits to come to the fore, other than she had great gnashes, so I thought I'd marry her.
And a good back.
And a good back. You missed that one too.
Strong childbearing hips. Yeah.
Good for a farm.
Good back. Strong.
Like strong.
Strong back and great teeth.
Yes, that's what you're looking for when you're thinking. You have a long-term vision for your
Making
life.
it sound like breeding stock, darling.
That's
Well,
what
but now-
he did with horses.
Now I have grown children, then I have grandchildren, and they all have great teeth and strong backs, and it's like it's a good trajectory.
Oh my life!
And
Where
she
was
was
it?
smart.
Where is it in Florida where they do all the horse riding? People keep horses. It's horse country.
Sarasota, probably.
I'm not even
I don't
Yeah,
know. I
just
remember Burt
It's like
Reynolds,
sort
all those
of
guys
the
had
middle of
farms there.
nowhere.
A lot of
Anyway,
horse riding in Florida.
So I went to wherever I was there. It's the land of horses in Florida, whatever. And the minibus driver that I was in, taking me from the airport, because of my face, and I'm not putting myself down, this is just a funny truth, I look quite horsey. I have a certain horsey thing. I look a bit like Princess Anne on steroids or something. And so Americans often say to me, oh, Katie, you ride, don't you? And what they mean is you look like a horse. But they've made the leap.
No way.
Who says that?
This happens all the time. I swear to God. Anyway, back to what we were talking about that wasn't teeth.
Well, David would have picked you then. He'd be like, hey, this is my cow.
Yeah. Got a strong back.
You gotta think long term, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna build a life together, you need people who can get stuff done. Just you need doers.
I do want to come back to
It's
your
not
point.
romantic. It's not sexy, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's something you can.
David,
I
no.
know.
We
I
didn't
know.
need you to articulate for us that isn't romantic and that isn't sexy. If you're that unaware, we already got that. I was
Yeah.
trying to give you that nudge, David,
Yeah,
before
exactly,
you
like-
mansplained that.
Exactly. Okay,
myself.
I do want to come back to your point about what you said about it. We as conservatives, we do need to link arms. We have to stop being so nitpicky about everything. It was interesting when we started our podcast, a couple of years ago. I couldn't believe the things that people would write in the comments and the stupid things that they would say. Like,
Animals.
Like, okay, so my grandma got me this checkered sweatshirt. My sweater. My grandma's 100. By the way. So she gives me this checkered sweater with black and white. Well, I wear it on one of the shows, and somebody comes back and says, well, clearly she's part of the Illuminati because she's got her...
Or they'll know them by their signs. Or
You'll
some
know
kind of
them by
crap.
their signs, like
I
stupid
got a
things
sign
like that.
for you.
We'd have people that would say things like, be careful with the way that you're placing your hands because you're making these signs on there, and we think you might be part of the Illuminati. I mean, like, the stupidest things. I'm like, are you kidding me? And like you said, it's just nitpicking. And I think it's really important because everything that they're trying to do is divide us, like you've said before, whether vaccinated, unvaccinated, masked, unmasked, black, white. I mean, you name it. It's like, how can we divide these people? And then when you get conservatives and you're all in one area and everything's about, nitpicking and you said this and you shouldn't have said that. And what'd you mean by this? And all of these things, it's just dividing ourselves, where the left,
Totally.
they don't divide themselves.
Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood and the LGBTQ can march together.
Yeah. Black Lives Matter.
Like,
Everybody just...
where do you guys overlap on the Venn
Yeah.
diagram? But they make it work,
Yeah.
at least on the far
They're
extreme.
even-
And
putting handicap in
it's
it.
tiring when you're doing something. So if we take the example of your sweater, and we can all pretend to be tough, and we can all pretend that we can handle it. And in many ways we can. And also, if we put ourselves out there, as you two do, we, I think, accept that not everything's going to go your way.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to like everything you do. And some people have got some unkind things to say and they're going to say them. But I think a couple of things happen. Number one is that we are critical because we want to do a good job. And so sometimes we could get, maybe like you guys, I'm sure, get 100 lovely things like you two are the greatest, or you two give me hope, or aren't you just so cute, or hasn't Stacey got great teeth and a strong back?
We get a lot of that.
I mean, a lot of that. But then what happens is we see one thing and we zone in on it for some reason, and it stays with us. Later on at night, we'll think, well, why did that person say the unkind thing about my nan's sweater? And it's really strange how we do that to ourselves. And we have to be, I think, as fighters, we have to really self-preserve as well. We have to say, let's get this in order. 99 comments and one person with too much spare time.
Great point.
I need to get a grip of that. So there is a thing about looking after ourselves by keeping perspective. And then absolutely there's a push for our side. I get called a grifter. Oh, she's paid by the Israelis. I wish I was paid by the Israelis, right? Yeah. Oh, she's Putin's puppet. Happy days. Pay me in rubles. I'm all about it. Bring it on.
Tax a free vodka behind you and saying the same thing you're saying right now. Who cares? It'd just be funnier.
Yeah.
I tell you, if I was paid in rubles, I'd be on a private jet all over the place right now. Do you see that happening? No. Do I walk from my Uber to the tent? Yes, I do.
Yeah, we saw it.
So, but that's exactly what we're saying. And I think sometimes, truthfully, people have jealousy on our side, and they are jealous of other people's platform. And unfortunately, some speakers are jealous of other speakers. And there's this unkind thing of competition, and that's when we all need to look to each other and say, come on, let's get some discipline in, where we push forwards together. We in gladiator terms, we hold the line. And you're looking down that thing going, hold the line, and we're all responsible to do that. And anytime I feel myself going about someone, I try and think, come on, this isn't helping us at all, is it? The enemy is that way. It's certainly not this way.
So good. That is a great point.
Yeah, because the teams are more like 7+ billion people who like humanity versus a few thousand globalist sickos that are trying to take the rest of them out. I mean, it's much more unifying when you look at the principles of there and say, you know what? I disagree with you on 9 things, but we'll fight together on free speech so that we both have the chance to say it. I can unite with somebody, even if it's just number one, free speech.
Also, just on the point you made earlier, if that person is Joe Rogan's built. Do I want to align myself with this little guy who's in a pair of 2-foot trousers and looks like he couldn't, he would blow over in a breeze? Or do I want to have Joe Rogan in my foxhole? I'm not sure what the foxhole is an analogy for, but I'm going with it.
Well, and you look at the kind of people, let's just talk about President Trump for a moment. It's interesting. There was an MMA fight, UFC fight this weekend, and it kind of went viral. One of the guys that won it did a serious shout out for President Trump. But I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, and his daughter and soon to be son-in-law flew to the event. And they said 4 or 5 times early on in the fight, because he was there, the whole crowd was chanting Trump, 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 in USA, USA, that kind of thing. And I'm like, that's a particular environment there there's no nepotism in a UFC ring. It's not boxing even where maybe somebody would throw it. You're getting your arm snapped in half here. These guys are legit in there. Those are doers. It's also, it's real, it's authentic. Nobody's going to throw a fight in UFC. I mean, it's your life's on the line, basically. About 3 weeks ago, President Trump went to the wrestling championships of college, the NCAA finals in Oklahoma, and attended that. He seems to be very attracted to those environments, and those kind of environments seem also very attracted to him. There's a lot of truth in that space. A Joe Rogan environment. He's a commentator for UFC. It seems to be that kind of free speech. This is real. This is truth. And that crowd comes alive with the Trump president.
100%. And they are built, and this is the truth as well. The strength of our side is not only in the depth of it and the numbers of people in it and its inclusivity. And I mean that not in a LGBTQQ way. I mean that in, you can be from the gay community. We don't care. You can be from any other religion. It doesn't matter as long as you're allied with us against the common enemy. And what I love about the strength of our side, though, it is represented with people who do work the land or have fought with their hands or have struggled a bit or bled a bit somewhere or had to build themselves stronger because things weren't always handed to them easily.
Right.
And I look at the Canadian truckers when they fought for freedom, and they brought their trucks into downtown Canada in Toronto, and they would not move those trucks, and it was minus 42 degrees, and they were there in the snow in just a t-shirt saying, we will not comply. And then you look to the Dutch farmers rocking up in their tractors. These are big beasts of men, and their wives are even more beastly in a brilliant way. And I love them all. And that is always so uplifting for me. You know, I had a day the other day, it was, I think over here, or maybe globally, whatever, it was Trans Day of Visibility. So I had a day of a straight white men visibility day.
Oh, that's good.
And we celebrated straight white men, which, you know, I do on a daily basis. And, you know, that's the truth, is our side. I'm super proud. I'm always super proud of our side because they're glorious. And they want to, more than anything, they want to look after their family and make a nice home and hope that their neighbour's going to be okay. And that's just what I'm so proud of. When it comes down to the nuts and bolts of the thing, our side is just the glorious side to be on, because it is just about looking after each other. And when I gather people here in the UK, one of the reasons it's so emotional is that so many people here in the UK do feel, as in America, but particularly here because it's so brutal. And when they go into a room and there's 1,000 people and they thought they were alone, and you see them, their little shoulders go down, and then they well up, and then they're in tears because they can't believe there's all these other people just like them. And it's just, this is the moment to be alive. Like anytime people feel like, you know, God, this is hard, this is the time to be alive. We're here for a reason, and this is the time. And it is an exciting time to be alive too.
It is. We were born for such a time as this. Colton keeps showing your Instagram. It's _Katie, KATIE
Colton's gone
Hopkins _ and we saw that you were celebrating the straight white men. So I loved that.
Colton's like, where's the worst photo of Katie ever? Oh, here, there, put that up.
That's good. Out
Love
in
it. It's
nature.
beautiful out there.
Yes. I try, you know. That's a sign that lovely Mark made for the tour. And in that last one, Colton, go down to the one where I look like a mad dog woman, the last one I just did. Go the other way. That one there, where I literally am just nostrils. So it's raining here because it's perpetually raining. So this is me. So the mayor of London is trying to make it so that people will have to pay to use their cars. And he's putting up surveillance cameras all over the place. So people will be fined for even getting in their car.
Oh my gosh.
And so brilliant British people on our side are going and buying this foam. It's a sort of foam that it's like filler foam, but it turns to concrete immediately. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yes, like builders use it.
Yep.
People are buying the foam and destroying the cameras.
Wow.
And so what I'm doing here is I'm pretending to be angry at these people. I'm like, well, the vandalism. I mean, it's shocking that you can just buy this filler at £6.69 from the tool station and you can destroy these cameras. How terrible. But essentially it's saying, go destroy the cameras. So that's what this is about.
So tell us about your time in the speakeasies. You've been spending some time in the speakeasy. Tell us about that.
You got a little movement here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. This is the thing that's like literally making me sweat. So it's going to be a 2-year project, but all over the UK, just as in America and places, just as in California, you know, there's a speakeasy network like you wouldn't believe in California that I love. But here in the UK, and it really is the resistance, over the last 3 years, groups have been gathering. And we had a thing called Stand in the Park. And I think you guys had something similar. People would just gather in public squares, or when they were supposed to be locked down, they would still get together. Well, here it was called Stand in the Park. And it was literally that. People got together, stood in parks together, even when they were supposed to be locked down. Those groups have continued meeting. And those groups now meet at secret locations. They have a database. They can fill a room, 300 people, just like that.
Wow.
Which is a lot of people here in the UK. Just so you know. I know America's really, really big. We're really tiny. 300 people is a lot. And so they get together. Yes, these good people like this. But now we're in venues and we're meeting at nighttime. And I'm doing my stand-up, my kind of, you know, making people feel better, laughing at the madness together. And it's all over the country. No one can find them because they don't promote. No one can stop them, because the venues are venues that supported these groups all along. And in every single town, as I wend my way across the UK, they're there. And sometimes we have to do 2 nights back to back because they've just got so many people, we can't fit them in. And, you know, part of what, and this is the bit I really wanted to talk about with your permission, is that part of what I talk about is our great American family on the other side of the pond. And British people don't really understand weapons because we never got a constitution. We didn't grow up with a Second Amendment. But these Brits do. And I talked to them about the Second Amendment and how great Americans are defending it. And without doubt and without fail, the thing that people come up to me afterwards and say is, I'm so happy to know that we have Americans who are with us. And that to me is just, that's goosebumps, because over in America, when I'm talking and I say, look, there's 80 million or so British people, and 60 million of them, are, I don't want to say the word a-holes because this is a Christian show, but 60 million of them are
okay, as long as you
Biden Democrats, but 20 million decent British people stand with them. We're cheering you on. And every time you buy another weapon because Biden says something stupid, we're like, yes, go on. So that's really important for me, that people understand Sadiq Khan doesn't speak for us. Politicians don't speak for us, and decent Brits are gathering, and the resistance is preparing itself here in the UK.
That is so good.
Well, in a battlefield of ideas, and that's how they're shared. And people grab things and understand it. You make me laugh. It's like, oh, I let down my guard.
Yep.
And I that really, that becomes a virus in my mind. I
Yes.
can no longer ever think of that topic different because you gave me a whole nother side to this. And that's what you're doing by sharing ideas. The way that you do allows people to receive it, and that transforms them. So
Well,
we're
I just
thankful
think,
for that.
we have, let's take electric cars. Here in the UK, and I will stand by this. Within 5 years, we will not have the right to own a car. We will not have the right to own our own vehicle.
That's their
here
goal.
in the UK. 100% going to happen. And so at the moment, it's all electric. You can only buy electric. You can't buy diesel. You can't buy, well, you can, but there's penalties for driving a car that's petrol or diesel. And these electric vehicle owners, they're the Newsoms, they're the Democrats. They're the Austin of Texas. They're the whatever. And they sit there in their Teslas. I love Elon and all the rest of it, but Tesla, because I've got a Tesla, I'm so right on. Like, my Tesla is powered by rainbows. Oh,
Right.
Where does the electricity come from for your Tesla? Oh, it comes out of polar bears when they wee. It powers my Tesla. like the nonsense. Oh, where does the battery come from? Oh, well, yeah, that's at the end of a rainbow. You find the Tesla battery, and that's why we're better than you are. And I think by mocking this, it does allow, like you say, people to just decompress that valve.
Yeah.
That no one's better than you, and certainly not if they own an electric vehicle. That kind of thing.
Yes. That is
Absolutely.
so
Katie,
good.
thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you for being a friend of the show. Thank you for being a friend of Stacey and I. We are honored to call you friend. And just you make every situation a little lighter and a little better, and you leave it better than you found it.
Oh, that's so kind of you. My first husband did not feel that way, but I'm doing much better with my second one. And but so much love to all of our American friends out there and family. Hello to everybody, and so much love to you both. I think you're the cutest couple. I don't even know how you work together as well as be husband and wife, and I'm sure it's due to Stacey's fine teeth and sturdy spine. But I love you both. Love to everybody on the team, and no doubt very soon I'll see you all somewhere on the road.
That sounds great. Thank you again for your time, Katie.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread the light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put into the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
You know what time it is. It's time for an economic update with Dr. Kirk Elliott. Yay! Welcome.
Oh my word. So I get so many messages every single day, and most of them are amazing, right? Because we're helping so many people.
Yep.
And some people just like to grumble and get mad and say, when are you going to stop talking about the banks and them failing? It's like, well, I can't because they don't stop.
Right.
Exactly.
It's happening. And so we want to keep bringing solutions, though. And you know, you have so many new viewers all the time. It's like, okay, sometimes we just, it's never an old story. It's like newness to these old stories because things are eroding right underneath our nose, like by the second. It's like we've talked about this before, but this is like this is like evolving and going at a supernatural pace right now. And this didn't just happen 2 weeks ago, right? This has been going on for a long time. We're just seeing it now, and it feels like it's happening at a supernatural pace. And it is going fast, there's no doubt. But you have to realize this all started back in the 1940s, right?
Wow.
Or actually before that, the Federal Reserve Act. And then you had Bretton Woods that made us the world's reserve currency, and then the petrodollar and all of that stuff. And then ever since, 9/11, you start to get cheap money, right? And policymakers realized, oh, we can actually flood the markets with cheap money, low interest rates, try to stimulate things. And then that was intensified again in 2009 on that crisis. So the things that we're seeing today is basically pay the piper time. You can't play with other people's money for that long and expect the rest of the world to have you amount 30-something trillion dollars worth of debt and still have your currency worth anything, right? But everything that we're seeing is actually because markets were collapsing and policymakers thought, well, we can fix it rather than just let the markets correct by themselves. We don't want the markets to correct on our watch. So let's just print money like there's no tomorrow and spend it like we're drunken sailors, and maybe nobody will see what's going on, and we'll have the appearance of things actually working. So one of those appearances of things working is what's been happening since you go back to President George W. and then add Obama to that, add Clinton to that mix, right? What are they doing? They were exporting jobs overseas, right, to get cheap stuff from China and everywhere else, right? So we didn't actually really realize how bad our currency was eroding because we kept buying cheap stuff from China, right? So it's like they're masking the fact that they're printing so many dollars, creating this inflation because we're getting cheap stuff. Well, now it's actually hit this point of no return. Right? So it is actually now manifesting itself. But this goes back presidencies, right, where they're exporting jobs to get cheap stuff, and that truly masked the inflationary pressures that we're seeing. Until now, we've printed so many dollars, we've exported so many jobs. This is where Trump wanted to make America great again and bring these jobs back to America. That got squashed when Biden occupied the White House, right? And Pelosi said, no, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing. We'll kind of reverse what Trump was working on, because they found it easier to keep getting cheap stuff, to keep exporting our power overseas, because our power is our workers, right? It's our manufacturing base, because they don't want what we want. You know, the globalists don't want a strong America. They want a weak America so they can have a strong global empire, right? And this
and Americans go right along with it because everybody's like, I realize a lot of people out of work and we have more paper hat jobs than we do like head of household income jobs, manufacturing, doing things like that. But, you can buy a string of Christmas lights for $3.
Right.
That's kind of a cool deal. You can get a flat screen for like $200, so like we kind of have traded, actual financial security with being able to have cheap trinkets.
Well, and that was the goal, right? And that masks itself for a little while because the unemployment that comes from that is we're exporting jobs is hidden until it hits a critical mass, which is what we have now. Wages are declining. Unemployment is sky high. It's like, well, we can't really get those back because the infrastructure has been moved to overseas. They've built up their manufacturing base. And it's really difficult to get that back, which is why what we have, the Rust Belt, right, in the central part of America, it's called the Rust Belt for a reason. Those factories were shut down. They got rusty. So now it's a process to get all of that stuff back. But in the meantime, as wages have been coming down, as exports have been going overseas, they're printing money to try to mask everything. You've got banks failing all over the place. And it's now starting to see this. So look at this article that we were talking about earlier, but it talks about the number of banks that have uninsured deposits, right? So FDIC actually is supposedly supposed to be there to cover the first $250,000. Anything over $250 is uninsured, right? So look at this list of banks where the uninsured number is a portion of their total deposits, right? Okay, it's massive, right? So when you look at like Silicon Valley Bank, for example, why did they go under? Because they had 93% of all of their deposits were uninsured.
Wow.
Mellon Bank, 92%. I mean, you go down this list.
Everybody should be looking. Where's your money right now?
Yeah, where's my money?
Where is your money? Try to figure that out because what you look at. Okay, the scary thing is you're if you've got a big bank, you're going to be on this list somewhere, right? But you go all the way down to the bottom, even Huntington Bank on the bottom of this list, it's still 45% of all deposits are uninsured. Right? And they're at the bottom of the list, right?
And that's what people need to understand because a lot of people are like, well, this doesn't affect me. I don't have $250,000 in the bank. This isn't going to apply to me.
It's affecting someone.
It does if your bank's gone and your $10,000 is no longer accessible.
Or you work for somebody that has that.
Yeah, I guarantee your boss should probably have $250,000 to meet payroll. So if you work for a large company.
We've only seen 2 of these go under, and they're the red lines at the top. Silicon Valley Bank at number 1, number 4 on that list was Signature Bank. Well, we heard all about them, but what about the ones in the middle? What about BNY Mellon? What about State Street Bank? What about Citibank that's up there? Would you one of these big monsters that fail and it's lights out? Banking as we know it changes forever.
Man.
Right? So we've seen 2 of those, and we still have some that are higher than Signature Bank. And you have some of these big monsters that are getting really, really close. Northern Trust, okay, that's right underneath Signature Bank on that list. What is Northern Trust? Nobody knows who Northern Trust really is, but they handle all the custodial accounts for JP Morgan Chase. So these are big institutions that we're pushing more than 3/4 of all of their deposits are uninsured.
Wow.
So that wreaks havoc on the markets because what happens to your money if they're uninsured? Well, technically, they don't have to be bailed out. That's the scary thing, which is why what we talk about is getting your assets into something that's safe, get them safeguarded, be in the right place at the right time, because you never know when your bank is going to be next. When Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on a Friday, on Thursday, people didn't realize, tomorrow my bank is going under, right? It just happened, right? At some point, it just does happen. So you're looking at this stuff, and why do I think these things are going to accelerate? Well, let's look, and we've talked about all this, so I'm not going to address them in detail, but I want to just bullet point them. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Mexico apply for BRICS nation status, right? Imagine ramifications of China being on the southern border. If it weren't bad enough with them being overseas, imagine them being on the southern border.
That's getting close.
We've had India cut a bilateral trade agreement with Russia to get rid of the U.S. dollar and trade in rupees. We've had Brazil cut a bilateral trade agreement with China to trade in the yuan. We've had Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia wanting to trade in rubles, right? You see country after country after country that's dumping the U.S. dollar and the petrodollar. And we've seen OPEC now basically cut supply. And what's that going to do? That's going to cause prices of oil and gas to go through the roof. So they just did this over the weekend. Like I think on last Thursday they did it. What happened over the weekend? Pretty much across the board, all over the country, gas prices over the weekend went up like 40 cents a gallon, right? It's like, and I was talking to somebody in Ohio on Saturday when I got to Arizona for Easter last weekend. It's like, hey, Kirk, do you realize that the prices went up like 40 cents? It's like, no, it didn't. So then I was driving through Scottsdale. It's like, oh my word, unleaded gas is like $5.18 a gallon.
Wow.
It's like, what? It really did, right? And this is because they're cutting production. If they cut production, it doesn't hurt them,
right?
Because they're still selling oil to everybody in the BRICS nations, right?
Yep.
Not at these things. But when you cut production and America is dependent on foreign oil still, and there's less supply, this is economics 101. Low supply, high demand, prices go up. This is what they're seeing. And they don't get hurt by that because as they cut production, the prices go up. It's like a zero-sum game, right? So people say, well, they're not going to do that. Why would they cut production? They're not losing anything, right? They're not losing anything. So you've got
it makes the price go up, which only helps Putin.
Yeah.
Because now the oil that he's exporting to China and other places is now getting premium dollars for it.
100%, David. I think that's exactly it. And then, so you've got that going on, which is going to exacerbate the bank failures and the uninsured deposits that we saw in that previous chart. But what else is going to exacerbate all of that? The derivatives debt and the derivatives exposures, just even at North American banks. Look at this list.
And they're changing places too.
Yeah, this is like a fantasy football ranking list, or like a power ranking, NFL power rankings. It kind of changes a little bit.
It does. It changes from time to time because if you look back even a few weeks, JP Morgan used to be at the top at 55 trillion and Goldman Sachs was like at 50. So they just flip-flopped. The numbers are still relatively the same. Citibank used to be at 43. Bank of America used to be in the mid-20s. And Wells Fargo is still staying static at around the 12 trillion. But it's like
just
the numbers are
money.
still about, but they're just moving it back and forth. And I don't know why. Maybe one of these banks is going to fail. So one of the other ones bought out some of their debt, and we're talking trillions of dollars. It's just a paper shuffle, right?
Trillions.
So we're talking, though, just on the top five, well over 200 trillion. Wow. But then add some of the European banks that are now hitting the skids and getting in the limelight, like Deutsche Bank, 47 trillion. Credit Suisse, which had to be bought out by UBS, 39 trillion. I mean, these are big. These are 10 trillions. It's like, oh my word. So this is why I talk about this every week for people that say, Kirk, why do you talk about the banks every week? Because it's staying the same, but it's not just staying the same, it's getting worse.
Yeah, they're not correcting. They're not course correcting.
And it's a warning though. It's like sounding a whistle. Hey, you need to be aware. Something is happening here.
It is absolutely that. And so in times of crisis, people will give up their freedoms. When people give up their freedoms, they give up their future, right? So how do we protect and preserve? Don't be a digital slave in this digital world.
Nope.
Don't have too much allocated into banks that are failing. Don't have your stuff in your assets into banks where most of those deposits are uninsured. Why not have something that's real, which is why we shout it from the rooftops every single week. Gold and silver, it's not debt-based, right? It's a cash purchase. It's something that's real. It's something that's tangible. Once you have it, you have it. Whether it's stored at a depository, whether you take delivery of it at home, it's not a digital asset that somebody is borrowing against and going into derivatives debt. It's the best flight for safety type of an investment that you could have in times like this. And this is why we talk about it every single week.
And it's something that everybody can get into. And I think that is really important. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. You can take small amounts of money and just consistently do this to try to protect yourself. And I love your team, Dr. Kirk. You have built such an incredible team. And we hear people all the time, everywhere that we go, as we're traveling, as we talk to people, they're like, I am so thankful for Dr. Kirk and his team. I can sleep at night. I feel so much better. And I love it because you give everybody a free consultation. When they go to flyovergold.com, a landing page, great information. But when you scroll down to the bottom, there's a place you can fill out your information. When you do that, someone from Dr. Kirk's team will get a hold of you to set up this free consultation, help answer questions, help you to figure out what is the best solution for you. Or you can also call 720-605-3900. Don't wait. Do it today. It doesn't cost anything, and it'll definitely be worth your time.
I love the fact you guys treat everybody the same, whether it's somebody that's investing $500 or they got a big IRA that they've have curated for a lot of years. And I get these comments sometimes. People say, "Well, I don't have a lot of money, and this is good for people that are rich or something." You can get it. That is almost a demonic stronghold in your mind, because you can get an ounce of silver for less than $25, and you could have done that a year ago, and you could have got one a week for the last 2 years. You could have got one a month. You could have done something. And so don't despise the days of small beginnings. $500, these guys will treat you exactly the same as if you're moving over a large sum, but have the consultation, at least find out what it would take. Don't discount yourself from the process because it's a small beginning, because there is hope and you can get out of the way of this oncoming train. Dr. Kirk, thank you so much.
Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
Times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for a free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.